So what's going on, guys? My name is MrDalekJD and welcome back to the next episode in things cut from Call of Duty Zombies. This was supposed to be a two-part mini-series, but I was blown away by the support of this first episode that I thought we needed to continue this series on in style, and we have so much new information about World at War and Black Ops 1 cut content that this is going to be a bonus episode where we look a little bit deeper in some of the things we spoke about and reveal some brand new hidden stuff as well. But don't worry, Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 will be coming very soon, and if you guys do enjoy today's video, then be sure to support it by dropping a like rating down below. On the last video, we have a astonishing 12,000 like ratings. If we could get anywhere near that on this video, I'd really appreciate it. If anything in this video surprised you, definitely let me know down below. But jumping straight in, we're going to be talking about World at War Zombies again, and more specifically on the ammo Mattock. It was the perk that we spoke about in the previous episode that was cut from Derice. Now, in the last episode, I mentioned how no one knows the price and the original idea of how the perk was going to work. But we've seen it ported many times over into custom maps, but the scripts and strings are still there within the game and the mod tools, and some of the functionality still works. And thanks to my friend SE2Dev, here is a working model of its original form inside of World at War with original scripts. Now, the original intention of this perk was to only give max ammo to the player that purchased it, and this costed 10,000 plus. Now, when it says 10,000 plus, it literally meant that if you had more than 10,000 points, it just took all of your money. Now, with it being that savage towards your points, I can kind of see why Treyarch got rid of it. And this next fact is something which every major Zombies fan should know, and Kino the Toten, Call of the Dead and Paris were planned as far back as DLC 3 of World at War, as seen by the bulletin boards around Derice. Now, what's interesting is some of the models from those are inside the World at War tools, such as a crane from Call of the Dead, a generator from Kino the Toten, and a sconce from Paris. But did you know, on the Coast bulletin board, you can see an electrical room with what appears to be the Engineer Zombie in it. Now, this Engineer Zombie's model and possibly some of its animations were present in the World at War mod tools as well, but he ended up being cut from Call of the Dead and replaced with George Romero, and instead was ended up used inside of Dead Ops Arcade. Now, what's interesting is the functionality with George Romero and this Engineer Zombie are almost identical. Similarly, an early version of the Nova 6 crawlers were also present in the World at War tools as well, and these had no textures. What's even more interesting is this model was never used in any future Call of Duty game, so here's a screenshot of a partially retextured crawler using the Black Ops 1 crawler textures. So as you can see, this zombie was actually not intended to be a crawler per se, but rather a tall zombie that walked on two legs. If I'm being honest, I'm glad that Treyarch made the change with the actual crawlers themselves, because I don't know how I'd be able to cope with these zombies. These look very weird, and we don't even know how exactly they were going to function. Were they even going to act like Nova 6 crawlers? That is something that we will never know the answer to. Now, something else that was scrapped from World at War Zombies was the introduction of more traps. And when I say more traps, I mean at least a good 4 traps. These are labelled as barrel electric, pendulum, perk electric, and propeller. So starting with that first one, the barrel trap was a barrel full of napalm or some ignitable liquid, and when you bought it for 1,000 points, it would tip down and pour the liquid out, then that would light on fire, then the barrel would tip up. It does sound like a bit of a long-winded trap, but I could honestly see this happening on a map like Shangri-La, for instance. The electric trap just seems to be the regular electric trap zappers, and the pendulum seems to be talking about the flogger from the map Shino Numa. Now, weirdly, I don't really know how to explain this perk electric trap, because it might be modified code from something else. The functionality of it seems to refer to electrical barriers, but some of the comments mention gas and fire. As for propeller, this seemed to be some sort of spinning blade, and perhaps they got inspiration from this all the way back then to be used in Mob of the Dead in between the Warden's office. There was also a leftover effect for a trap called Chopper Trap, and as you can see here, it's just squirting out tons and tons of blood, but with the words chopper in it, it sounds a little bit like perhaps the helicopter blades. But this next one looks even more similar to helicopter blades, as you can see the shadow of some blades just spinning, which again could be reference to what they used in Mob of the Dead. But enough about World at War, let's jump onto Black Ops 1, starting with this scrapped freeze gun model, and to me this looks way cooler than the Winter's Howl which they went for. Just looking at it, it looks like they got a few different things from different weapons and just really jammed it together. You can see right where the handle is, it almost looks like the top of a ray gun, but as we see here, it almost reminds me of a weapon that we saw in Exo Zombies. Now the UVs don't line up with the final version, so it's not textured correctly, but you could admit it does look kinda neat, and this does look a lot cooler than holding a pistol which shoots out ice. Now moving on to other zombie related things, Dead Ops Arcade is a real underrated Easter egg within the Black Ops series. We had it in Black Ops and of course in Black Ops 3, but did you know Dead Ops Arcade originally had an entirely cut intro sequence and a script for it still exists. The script starts off with summary of introduction as it stands currently. Scene opens on the island arena in third person cam mode. Princess and player are standing there in idle. There is a small boat and a lot of treasure. Our villain, the Cosmic Silverback, comes charging down out of the Skull Rock, stopping short of the couple. Some dialogue using James dialogue tech. Ape kills woman dramatically. Ape collects up some treasure, says some shit and splits. Camera goes to top down, player is armed, brief tutorial, enter the zombies. And yes, that part was actually part of the cut script. Now this does sound in line with the humour of traditional Dead Ops Arcade, so it's not sure why exactly it was cut, but it might have something to do with the fact that the model for the princess belonged to a cut character from the campaign. Now let's move on to a few quirky, interesting facts. So do you remember on Ascension, we didn't have dogs, we had those ridiculously annoying monkeys which made it impossible to carry all the perks you wanted, and we didn't have anything on Call of the Dead. Well, those two maps were mentioned in their scripts to have dogs, but we can't really tell if it's just leftover code or not. Ascension seemed to only initiate the spawn functions but doesn't mention it anywhere else, but Call of the Dead mentions it in a bunch of spots. Would you have liked to have seen dog rounds on either of those maps? Let me know in the comments. Now something else that's quite quirky and different is Mule Kick was originally, or at least internally, called Holster Bolster. Now in my opinion this does sound pretty cool, but it is a little bit of a tongue twister. Now a pretty hot topic from my last episode was talking about how Moon was supposed to be Paris, and we have a little bit more intel to share on Paris. So for any of you keen-eyed within the trailers for Moon would have noticed that the release of Moon had a cut chunk of geometry, and this is still visible in one of the trailers. In this screenshot on the top right you can see one of the tunnels being excavated, but we never ever play inside of that area. So it could be a leftover bit from the Paris map. Now what I'm about to show you is going to blow your mind. Here is a bird's eye view of Moon entirely, and we can see tons and tons of sections that were supposed to be part of Paris. So if we make our way from the very top, we can see the biodome of Moon was supposed to be a forest area in Paris. If we move ever so slightly down from there, we can see that the teleporter zone in Moon was initially supposed to be the tower zone in Paris, and there are images from the boards in Doris which back up these sections. I'm going to try not to talk too much just so you can gander and enjoy this for as long as we can, but as we make our way further towards the spawn area, the Tunnel 11 entrance of Moon was supposed to be the Catacomb East entrance. The spawn area of Moon itself was supposed to be the bridge zone in the Paris map, and interesting enough, the spawn area of Moon was also part of a bridge in early versions of Moon. If you look at this screenshot in the bottom, the far bottom is the Moon that we have today, but if you look at this concept art image, you can see that this far part of the bridge was removed and it's missing. It's quite a big sizable difference. And in the far left where the chasm is, or where the rockets were, that is supposed to be the Seine River. As we move up to the image, you can see where Tunnel 6 is. This was supposed to be another entrance of the catacombs, and here is what we believe to be what it would have looked like inside of Black Ops 1. Do you guys remember in the last episode when I mentioned about how the biodome just fits very snugly underneath the Eiffel Tower? Well, SE2 Dev done some measurements with the IRL version of Paris vs Moon, and Treyarch took a few creative liberties liberties, but they line up for the most part, as you can see in this image. Sounds pretty cool, right? But there is one final jaw-dropping fact that I want to present to you guys about Black Ops 1, and there are some scripts which mentions pro versions of perks in zombies and challenges, which we could presume to be similar to what they ended up doing inside of Black Ops 2, but they experimented with other gameplay changes as well, because there are various scripts for abilities as well, such as airstrikes, air support, artillery, cloak, dogs, endurance, helicopters, napalms, a portal, RCXD, and a turret. Now, thinking about that being in zombies now sounds like the most ridiculous thing in the world, but we sort of got the airstrikes if you recall the Origins Easter egg where you get the G-strikes. Technically, throwing down those grenades initiates airstrikes to come out of the back of the robots. And you could also count the turrets being inside of Kino and Ascension, as those were buyable traps. But I could not imagine driving an RCXD in zombies, having dogs to help us out, or air support as in actually being inside of a chopper. It sounds crazy. But that is all we got for this episode, guys. If you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments section. Make sure to click that thumbs up button if you want to see more in this series, because I have an absolute blast making it for you guys. If you missed the last episode, that will be linked down below in the description. But thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you next time.